Hello everybody, this is Mariana from the channel The Vibes Inside. I just wanted to tune in with a little download I had this morning, and I just barely got out of bed, and but anyway, if you know me and you've been following me on my channel, I have roughly sometimes spoken about this a little bit. I'm gonna say a little bit more today about it, because now I think I've figured out why things have been the way they've been for me. So I had the download today of something like, what do you want your container to contain? You could say. I was philosophizing this morning about this dilemma I have been struggling a bit with, this idea that the soul is infinite and the body is finite, and how can I somehow figure out to kind of get these two to work together somehow. And is it even possible? The ego mechanism of the human brain, how can this somehow not speak, and then the soul can kind of just live its infinite life somehow, and I'm still not sure if that's possible. I've gotten to the point where I think acceptance is a thing, that I can accept the theory, like the theory I get, but so the theory of the soul coming here and having incarnations and learning something. The body, though, it's different, because we still have animalistic instincts, and they kind of override everything, right? It's like, it just dawned on me, this idea that you look at a guru, right? A guru, an Indian guru, right? Who has been sitting in a monastery for 30 years and meditating. And we could say, if they are really that enlightened, how come they choose a life like that? Like, how come it's, for everything you could choose in this world, why are they choosing a life like that? And it, again, it's because many of us, we identify our lives with the things that are outside of ourselves. We look at it and we want it, right? We want to buy that clothes, we want to be with those friends, we want to have that car. But it's the other way around for the gurus, right? The other way around. The gurus have an inner experience that is way bigger than you can ever find in the outside world. No matter how much money you have, no matter how much power you have, no matter, like, the light in them, the love in them, it overshines everything. And then it hit me, like, it's something like, it seems like their container, their body is filled with something. It's filled with something. It's filled up with something that is not outside of them, it's inside them. And of course the spiritual journey takes us there, but it's just, I really got to this point of the question, right? What do you want to fill into your container? Like, and container, your body, but also your brain. Like, what are you listening to? What is in your brain? What is in your heart? What's in your body? The spiritual journey often talks about surrender. Surrender to God. Let go and let God, we say. Something like that, right? And it becomes more and more evident to me that it's letting go of that ego, like the ego mechanism of the human body. This is the survival protector, right? Because the ego represents something that is very earthy and animalistic. And if you identify as earthy in form and with animalistic instincts and all the survival history of anything that has form, actually, you cannot let go. It's not possible, I think, to let go and surrender to the bigger cosmos. Every day the body is engaging with something. Every day we scan, our brain, our instincts scan for something. Maybe you're not even thinking about it, subconsciously or not. But the point is that the gurus have made a choice, right? They've made a decision that I want to fill up my being. This being that I'm giving, this body that I am. I want to fill it up. But another thing that is so interesting, and it actually links also to my own story, is that, but you can just take a look at a baby, right? When they come in, what do they contain? Everybody's drawn to a baby. Like, well, not everybody, but many people are just, Why? It's just a baby. Why? It's because they are filled with something. They are filled up with something. Until they have been here for a while, then it shifts a little bit, right? Depending on what they experience. When children grow up, they lose a sense of innocence, which I actually believe is a divine understanding also. Like the things we lose, right? You could say the things we lose on our journey here, we get some of it back when we become elderly, right? I think I've talked about this before, that many times actually, that we come in from a passive state, we become active, run around, do stuff, and then when we become elderly again, we become passive again. And then we go home, you could say. So connecting with home means that there's a sense of passiveness, there's a sense of slowness, a sense of relaxation, and acceptance also. A child is in human form and must accept that they can't yet walk, they must accept something, as well as you must accept something when you're dying. You must accept something. Or at least from an ego standpoint, you must accept. Because the ego would say, it's not a safe place to be here. You are dependent on others. You need others to do something for you. The same here. You're not safe, right? The ego doesn't like these states. The soul doesn't matter. Like they don't care. None of it is bad. Like the soul is infinite. It's just an experience. Um, but to the human body, this is, and the human egotistical, survival-oriented brain or comfort-oriented brain, this is something totally different. I realized that at least for me, like one of the main purposes for me to be here is to fill up my container with something that is what I want it to be, like and I can do this. I've done it many times. When I was a child, I have come in with a sense of light, but I wasn't received in an environment with life. So with life and light. So what happened? I think I am designed to hollow out. Like that's one of my innate qualifications, that I can hollow myself out and let something else be present there. Maybe that's why I sometimes feel like I get a lot of information from people and stuff and situations around me, because somehow I empty myself for something else to be present. This is an innate quality for some people, but I see now how it has been a problem for me. When you don't know it, like when you're a child, you don't know. I didn't know. I didn't know what I was doing. I was literally a bit of a shapeshifter, and I had no idea. Like I had no idea. I just did it. It's innately in me. I'm built like this. I'm built to shift if something else becomes like the biggest, you would say. If I felt I could choose, like as a child, again, as I said, that I don't think I had a choice. A scapegoat doesn't have a choice. Like they get designed by what is there. The child doesn't know anything else. And the ego starts building, right? When you're not treated well. And when the ego becomes big enough, it's now the ruler. It takes over. We forget all about our innateness. We forget all about source, light, and love. We forget all about it. We live lives where the ego protector and the animalistic understanding of us and survival mechanisms are the absolute most active. Especially if you have post-traumatic stress, or you are like severely physically or mentally wounded. This takes over. Then we get a giant ego, and I had to break that ego down to actually find what's innately in me. When the ego was ruling, I was very miserable. I wasn't happy. I was doing the best I could to survive in the environment I was in. I hollowed myself. It's a thing. It seems like that I can do this. I know that there's a mention of this. INFJs, I think, do this. I don't know if I'm an INFJ. I don't care about these labels, right? But I found a channel where they talk about this. She's called Wences or something. Wences. Wenzes, I think, Wences. She talks about this. The hollowing out is a part of INFJ, like personality. I had no idea about that. But when I read about it, or I heard her, it made sense to me. Because what happened was when my ego took over, now my father and my mother became, like the dogma. They became, you say, the designers of how I was supposed to be. And I shapeshifted. I shapeshifted so much that I forgot that I shapeshifted. I became the daughter they wanted. I was miserable, but I became the daughter they wanted. I was reliable and good. Good. I behaved in a way that was said to be good within the design, right? Within the design, the bubble that my parents wanted. I shifted totally into that. I was so good at it that I totally forgot. I left everything behind. I've lived more than 40 years of my life like that. I had no idea. I knew I was miserable. I knew that something was off, but I couldn't point a finger on it. And like I lived a life that was never true to my true core, actually. And I have attracted people into my life who they liked the one I was. So it was never really good for me, right? Because they liked the way I was, and it emphasized that I should be it more, that I should continue to stay like that. And I became more and more miserable. I lived more than 40 years of my life like that. I can't recommend it, really. I can't recommend it. But I forgot. Like, I shapeshifted so bad, so truly, that I convinced myself about it. Actually, I'm a shapeshifter. I've done this maybe you recognize this, like you meet a new friend. And because I hollow out, it's something I do. I don't know why I'm doing it, but I'm doing it. Every time I make a reading, I hollow out. That's the way I get the information. Otherwise, I can't, it's not, I allow it to be present, right? So I take my own, personal things and kind of shove them away for a minute. And allow myself to be totally present with what's there. And that's also what I've done as a kindergarten teacher. I did it with the children. I hollowed my out to understand what was going on with them. I was probably one of the most psychic or open, you could say, kindergarten teachers where I was working. I could spot a problem from a long distance. I knew that something was off over there, right? But it was stressful. There was a lot of energy there. So it eventually I had a breakdown, right? I had this vertigo attack. I couldn't stand on my feet. And I had no idea what happened, why it happened. It had taken me a long time. Now I know that this hollowing out is I know why I came, I think. I know why I'm here. I'm supposed to I hold energy. We all hold energy. We just have to decide which kind. Like, that's why I had this question. What do you want to contain? Right? What do you want your vessel to contain? I contained, you could say, when I was a child, I contained, and for many years, I contained the dogma of my family. So what they believed in, hard work and, the lack mentality, and I was a holder of that. I hollowed myself. I became the disciple of this way of thinking. And I have now been on this journey to kind of release myself from that, to figure out what is it that I am. And it has taken me a very long time. Being someone who hollows themselves out for others makes it difficult to figure out what you are. I think that, but again, usually in a spiritual journey, it's about finding out the problems you once had, to turn them into something maybe useful for others, right? And I'm just sharing some of my stuff because maybe there is another one out there like me, and you could be watching, right? And I'm just saying what I have figured out here, that I'm supposed to hollow out, but for you could say, the right things. And I'm supposed to figure out what the right things are for me then, right? It's a decision. When you contain a lot of ego, you are in a war zone. Like, well, not if the ego is in charge. Like, if the ego rules everything, that's probably, maybe you are miserable, but at least you can probably live a quite functioning life, I think. You may not be happy, but you could function, I think. The problem is, or the problem came, you could say, for me in this world, to live a functioning life, when my soul wouldn't take it anymore, you say. My soul has been watching all the time, right? Just seeing what happens when someone hollows themselves out, and I had no idea I was doing it. It's just the way I am. I don't know anything else. I don't know what it means not to. I got into narcissistic relationships. Of course I did. A narcissist can only love themselves. So they would love a partner that hollows themselves out so that they don't take space. Like, they don't. It's almost like, I think for some people I don't exist. Like, I am so vague in my presence that I don't exist. And I have felt that myself, like, who am I actually? Like, who am I actually? Because it's, well, I remember one time I was married at that point. I'm just telling you, I'm just sharing something, right? I remember one point, I was married. I wasn't very happy at that point. My son was very young at that time, maybe 2 years or so, and I was feeling very miserable. And again, of course, I hollowed out for my son. Like, he became everything I was concerned about. I was like this giant guardian angel that was just there, but I myself was almost not existing, right? He became, and my husband became everything. Eventually, I had no idea of what I actually liked myself, what kind of music, what kind of food, I was just doing autopilot, kind of. So So I'm still figuring out what I am. But I also must I recognize that this is possibly innately me, that I am a vessel, primarily a vessel. Maybe that's also why I can tune, right? Because there's nothing, the things that could stand to prohibit that, they're not there. You know, like I let it fill in. I let it, does it make sense? Like I let it fill in because I can. It's innately what I am. I'm more a container than anything else. And then again, a container of what? A container of something. So if I let the dogma of my parents rule, and the ego that was developing in me, if I let it rule, I felt miserable, but I didn't know why. Because the things that was filled into me were not in alignment with me, actually. With what is actually innately me. Like, innately I'm supposed to hold a different energy. Innately I'm a vessel here to hold some kind of energy. And I can hold one kind, or I could hold another one, and innately I am supposed to hold the other one. I think we all are, but we forget it. And the holding, like becoming the container of something, means that you surrender the ego. The more you surrender the ego, or you let go of old traumas and things, you are actually in a surrendering position. When you surrender something, you allow for something else to be present. But again, surrendering something or yielding, as I've talked about, becoming either the rebellion or the or the yielding acolyte. I was definitely a yielding acolyte, and now I know why. I'm built to be. Like, I'm built to be a vessel for something else. And well, my ego is kind of not liking it, I think. But I know that this is a fact, and I've been doing it all my life. I have not been aware. So I could, I could empty myself out and be with a friend, and they would like me, of course, because I let them take the space. Like I let them be bigger. I let them become bigger. And usually comply. I wouldn't go against what they were saying. Going against other people is innately not exactly what I am. I think it's not. I don't like it necessarily, and that's why I'm not Prometheus. I'm not the rebellion. Some become the rebellion, right? They fight. And they won't yield. And then you go on your own journey through life, and maybe that's how you end your life also. In my case, I just know that I'm supposed to figure out what my container should hold. Like, what do I want to put in it? Like, what is not only what I eat, well, could be, right? But not only what I eat, but also what I think, what I let myself be influenced by, what I resonate with. So to hold more and more light, you could say, means that you constantly are questioning your thinking, constantly questioning the things that is a dilemma, or where you have prejudice, or where you feel fear, or it just dawned on me, this idea that, like, what do you want to put into your vessel? Like, what do you want your vessel to be contained of? Like, and just think about so many ways people could think. Do you want your vessel to live a life of like animalistic instincts? Then that's what you're doing. You live in ego then, and protective mechanisms. If you want to live a life of love and light, you start choosing, right? You start choosing that. You start choosing environments where the things that you let yourself be contained, or the things that are around you, if I hollow myself out, I want to hollow myself out for things that are kind, perhaps, that is not a threat to me. This is what I think the gurus do. Like, they hollow themselves out, surrender everything, to sit in loving awareness, like to sit in a space or a feeling that their entire body is containing loving awareness, always. The baby comes in born with this. They don't know. Like, they forget about it. Well, maybe they know a little bit, but we say that the baby is omnipotent, meaning that it lives in its own little world. And it just comes from the womb, where everything is great. It's a one-room flat, right? You get everything served. There's food there. There's warmth. It's always nice and comfy there. And I think it's the same thing with the gurus. Like, they sit in this loving awareness meditation. It's like being home. It's like being, you would say, connected with the oneness that everybody talks about in spiritual circles. It's a way of filling yourself up with the things that actually feel helpful, that makes you feel whole, that makes you feel, I want to say, safe and relaxed and peaceful. They deliberately choose to sit in the monastery on top of the hills because it's nice there, it's calm there, it's peaceful there. The more we hollow out, the more we get attracted to, I believe, things that are peaceful and calm. And maybe to other people it seems extremely boring, but it's not. It's an inner filling up of something. So when we in tarot talk about the cups energy, whether there's something in the cups or not, whether it's a filled up cup or a empty cup, it's like it's your vessel, right? And when you're filled up with something that really nurtures yourself, where you feel that, and that's another thing that comes when you fill up that cup, you could say, is that it doesn't matter about that car. It doesn't matter about it's like the inner world you get is, or you have access to, is much more fulfilling than whatever you can find outside of yourself. It can be difficult to understand because there's so much outside of ourselves that we could choose from. But this inner feeling it overrides everything. And that's why it can bypass a big ego, right? Because if that seed is still there, you can grow it. If you just have a tiny little seed left of this light, you can grow it. But then you have to be aware of it and not aware of this other stuff that the ego will take you to the problems, right? The ego mind will always take you to the problem. What's uncomfortable, what is unpleasant, what is not nice, the people or things that you have like that is not accommodating you. Because deep down that's what we want. We want the accommodation, we want the womb, right? And we just try to navigate life like that. But actually most people are uncomfortable. Most of the time, they're not uncomfortable. We can have moments of joy and fun, but usually something happens that just breaks the fun, or like a neighbor is complaining or something. There's always something that just that's the yin and yang thing, right? That there's always something that. And then the ego brain with a very active amygdala can take over, and it becomes your state of being. This is how you live. That is now your default setting. I just know that I think there's always a decision that you can make. That you could say, go against your ego, especially if you feel unhappy. Like if you feel unhappy in your life, something is wrong. I'm not saying that everybody out there is hollowing themselves out like I do, because I literally got to the point where I had no idea who I was. Sometimes I still don't. Like I am so good at this. I think I'm designed to do this. Like I am, and again, if I'm designed to do this, it makes sense in the fifth dimension that I actually came here, that I choose to come. Because I'm supposed to hold energy. I'm supposed to be a vessel of energy. It's just which one, right? Which frequency is the one that I want to put in here. Because you see, if you put the wrong stuff in, this now can become like a living hell, right? If you imagine me being a vessel and all that's in there is pain and suffering and stuff, right? But if you can get some of this stuff out and you put something else in, now it becomes blended, it's different. And eventually, if it's possible, I don't know if I get there, but let's see. If I get there to the point of like that my heart emanates love frequencies, then, and only love frequencies. I don't know if that's possible in a human body, but well. We will see where life takes me, right? And we will see what I'm holding then. What am I holding? But at least now I make the decision, right? Now I've made the decision to battle my ego. Like that in itself is, or battle, to negotiate, I want to say, that's what I've been doing, negotiating with my ego. And the ego doesn't give up easily. Like this is I think for me it has been like ongoing most of my life, actually. but like really asking yourself what you want your container to, because the container will, when you feel miserable, it's because you're containing something. Well, there can be things outside of yourself, you may not be able to control them, but this you're given, the brain you're given, the body you're given, this is something that you could change. This is something you could do something about. But it takes an active will. It takes really I think in the beginning it was just something about I just wanted to feel better. I just wanted to be a little more happy or a little more relaxed somehow. Now it has gotten to a point where it's not just about me. I think that if I hold enough light, it also reflects on my behavior. It reflects on what I do. Of course, it could reflect on what I eat and what kind of routines or rituals I have. But if I walk the earth with a container that where there's something in it, there's something in me, the way I think, the way I speak, the way I carry myself, it will be seen or it will be noted, right? And that is, I think, what I'm supposed to do. Like if I become the container of this, I'm doing something about my own awareness, my own well-being, but it could reflect on others as well. What I'm saying now, if it resonates with you, maybe I am sending an input to you, right? Of course, always screen for what you think. If it doesn't make sense to you, or if you don't resonate, then of course don't take it. Like my biggest message always is to figure out what's right for you. And here we can talk to two voices, right? We can talk to the ego voice in you. And we can talk to the other one. The free one. The ego is a protector and the other is a free voice. So you have, like, every time you go through some kind of message, whether it's news or, like a fashion video or beauty video or something, it will be directed, I feel like, towards primarily your ego. The news will make your ego open its eyes. Oh, there's a bomb threat, right? So the active protector is there. If it's a beauty video, it will talk to vanity, again an ego thing. And I'm not. That's just what it is, right? It's something about I want to look in a certain way, because I look in a certain way, then I can attract something or I can get something, and it makes me feel in a certain way, right? But again, it's because if you don't put it on, you don't feel like that. If you don't do your makeup every morning, you do not feel like that. That's the whole point. That I need to use this stuff that is outside of myself, put it on me, then I feel better. But actually, it's almost like do an internal makeover. If you do an internal makeover, you don't need the makeup. Like it doesn't matter. The feeling that you want from putting on the makeup is there. It's in there. It's an all encompassing love feeling and acceptance. That there's no need to dress up. There's no need to look in a certain way. Your brain functions in a different way. You don't need it. It's not necessary. That's what I said. When you start filling up this cup of yours, or container, what we should call it, with like loving awareness, I would say, if you start doing that, I talk about doing self-love, but again, distinguishing between what that is. Are you doing something that satisfies your ego, or are you doing something that satisfies your heart? That helps your heart to feel in another way. Does it make sense? Like, I'm not wearing makeup, not always, here on the channel, and I'm not. It has been one of my things here on the channel that I should, like strip the layers down to, well, almost how far I could come, right? That I'm growing my gray hair out, and all that kind of stuff. It's like coming closer and closer to a like a full acceptance of all that I am. Also the bad sides, the negative sides, that I do have negative thoughts, I do have negative feelings, is part of being human. But it's almost like, well, when we sit in meditation, in the beginning, if you start meditating, people will tell you something like, you just sit there with your eyes closed and thoughts are coming. But you just take an approach as this being you are. You just allow the thoughts to come in. You see what they are about, and you're just gently and lovingly sending them off again, right? And then you sit again, and then there's a new thought coming, and you're just gently accepting it. You send it gently off again, right? That's kind of one of those, and I've always been bombarded like with thoughts in that way. It was very difficult for me to do that kind of meditation. I had to figure out another way, right? Anyway, the point is that it's what you're doing in meditation is that you are in loving awareness, meaning that you want to sit in an open pose, with open hands, not like open hands to receive the information from the divine, or let your intuition be open, or something like that, right? And what you are doing there is exactly the same thing you could do with people. Like, the thoughts come, it wants to intrude your process, and it tells you something, blah, 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 right? And you can just say, oh, yeah, I see you, and now I send you off again. And then you kind of let it go, right? It's the same thing with people, or messages, or news, or anything. It comes in with some kind of awareness. If you sit in like uninfluenced awareness, that you have loving awareness for everything there is, but it doesn't mean that you have to take it all in. So when something comes towards you, you look at it and you say, okay, yeah, this is what you are. You are something. You want to sell me something. You want to yell at me. You want to influence me somehow. And I decide whether I want that. I can just let you pass by like that. Unless you are in a violent prison somewhere where you cannot. But otherwise you can choose of the influences. You can put your phone aside. You can stop watching the news. It's all up to you. It depends on, in some circles, it depends on which wolf are you feeding. Are you feeding the ego wolf? Because the ego wolf is always like hungry for more problems. Because when it's fed, it's it lives. It lives. It's taken care of. It lives. It's active. It's strong, actually. When you feed it with more problems and everything, yeah, it grows. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly how the world is. And everything is so, you feed it. It becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and more stronger and stronger and stronger. It takes more and more to tear it down. But when you feed it, this is that would be the voice that now is controlling your brain. Everything you do. But you could start feeding another one. Another one that is questioning this, that says, what if there's something else here? What if this is not right? What if I am beautiful no matter whether I'm wearing makeup or not? It's so interesting when a child is born, right? A child lays there, a bit chubby and like how babies are. Babies have no concern about what they look like. Small children have no concern about their look. And we do not necessarily put full makeup on them, do we? Like, I know some of the young girls, they sometimes get, nail polish, but it's only because they see the mother do it. When children play in the playground, they don't have makeup on. And they find each other anyway. They figure out whom to play with anyway. They can have best friends anyway because they accept each other how they look. Like they don't. It doesn't matter. And the older we get, we lose this, right? We lose this. And then we get to a point like I'm 52 now. So I'm in this process of needing to release like the egotistical views about looking good, being attractive. Because I can't, you could say, compete with a 20-year-old, right? I can't compete with that. So I'm in this process of relearning or letting go of ego, actually. I'm letting go of ego. Some don't get to this point. Like they die before they are 50, perhaps, right? Some go all the way till they're 90, right? And they will have a process that starts around like me now, right? And then it goes to the end, where something is declining, it becoming less and less, it's becoming something else. But there's one thing that is also very interesting, is that a child, sometimes they love visiting their grandparents because the grandparents are slower. They have more time. They don't run around like crazy adults do, stressed out with all kinds of stuff. They have time. They slow down. They're more peaceful. They are calmer. Well, not everyone, of course, but one of the reasons why children like grandparents, one of the traits is this, that it's because they have time. They are actually available. They become more yin-like. It means that they move slower. They become more, you could say, the way the connection is on, I want to say. Like the connection is on. There's a deeper closeness. And it's actually not, it doesn't take a big effort. Like it's like they are on the same, well, they are start growing, but they still know where they come from, right? And the elderly are returning to the fact where they are going, that they're going back home, right? They're turning to that fact. They become more yin. Sometimes elderly people are more psychic. They think more about life. They think back. Sometimes they review their life. They change their mind about stuff. And they see in areas where they may have, failed, where they thought they were doing everything right in that moment, but now they see that there could have been another way, or they were driven by maybe only the ego, and they didn't see other things, right? There were other things they didn't pay attention to. So elderly people can go through a process like that, right? That they start looking at all the people that run around, like all the active adults, right? They start looking at them like, yeah, these are the active ones, and I was once that. And maybe I didn't feel like I had time for my grandfather or grandmother, or I didn't feel like I could slow down. But then they get to sit in that chair and they're looking at it and they're just thinking, why are they not slowing down? Something like that. So the question is what you want to fill up your cup with. What do you want to fill up your vessel with? Because it's going to be a direct reflection of your choice. But some don't, they have forgotten they have a choice. The ego rules the mind. The ego starts out as a protective mechanism. It's like it's invited in when we feel uncomfortable. So when the child or a young child or something experiences something very dramatic, perhaps this is one of the first times the ego really come in. And it starts building walls and starts changing the way you think. Because you are no longer in the one-room flat with all 24-hour service as you were in the womb. Perfect, balanced, warmth and everything. You are now out here in the wilderness, and it doesn't just come to you like that, right? You don't just get things like that. It's not always perfectly warm. It's not always perfectly sheltered. It's not always to your accommodation. But we want that. We want the accommodation. It just isn't. So we are now getting used to not being accommodated, which is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. And this is where we become a bit grumpy, right? We become more and more. We start to see the flaws everywhere. We start to, then the ego is fed. It says, yeah, just asking more and more. So sometimes the problem is not out there, it's in here, actually. And I am no saint in that area. Like, I really have had to do a lot of cleansing here, and I probably still have. I don't think it's ever going away, because you will have new input every day. You have to be selective about it. Again, like I said with the meditation, when people come in with something, first of all, you don't have to take it in. If it goes against, well, one of my guidelines for this is, well, if someone sends something to me, I watch a YouTube video, for instance. The things they are sending, is it kind? That's probably one of the most important. The person can look kind, like they can look as if they are a very nice person, but the message, what is it sending, and what is the reason for the message? Why have they made it in the first place? Is it to sell something? Is it to be seen on YouTube? Is it to create followers? Is it to... What is the reason? And what is it triggering in me? Is it triggering... Is it triggering like an ego response? Oh yeah, my nose is so big, so maybe if I use this shadowing thing, then I will feel better. Or if they want to sell you something, do you want that product or do you want that service? And the ego is always protective, so you really have to think a little bit deeper about that, perhaps sometimes. The ego wants to sustain itself. Sustain you, it would say. It would always present as protecting you, but it's protecting itself also. Like it is almost like an entity of its own. So what do you want to put in your container? What's supposed to be in there? If you could fill it up with everything that would make you feel whole, feel loved, feel appreciated, feel accepted or something, worthy or whatever, would you do it then, right? Because these are the questions that will come up for you. Everything you want to fill in there, you will be questioned this. So if you want to fill in worth here, you will be questioned. Like it will question your mind why you do not feel worthy. Why do you not feel worthy? You want to put in worth. It must be because you feel you don't have it then. It's absent. We want to fill in the things we feel that are absent. Great. Then you have to ask yourself why it's not in there in the first place. Why do you feel you are not worthy? Why do you feel guilty? Why do you feel shame? If you want this out and you want to put something in instead, you will be questioned these things. So it's not just filling something new in, also emptying something out. The more you empty out and let go of, you surrender it, you let it go, then you can get something else in. But if you have a full vessel of pain and suffering and sadness and tears and rejection and abandonment and everything, you have to get, like, all this shit has to go if you want to put something else in. Once at a time, perhaps, again shedding maybe one layer after another here. I think eventually we're supposed to get to that point. Like the gurus we see today that sit like that, in this loving awareness, this is all that they are. And they don't need anything else from the eyes. They need a little bit of food, perhaps, to sustain the body they have, but otherwise they are content where they are. They have everything they need because it's in there, not out there. I believe that the gurus we see today is what humanity is supposed to be. All of us, eventually. We should all be able to be like that. Then we have literally raised the vibration on earth. We are all walking in loving awareness. We're just not there yet. Like the growth process, like with the tomatoes I've used for some of the readings, the tomato is ripe when it's ripe. It's not ripe when it's not. The egg is not hatching unless it's ready. Right? It's a process that comes over time. We are just in a maybe like real beginning phases of something, right? So you ask yourself what you want to have in your container. Like sometimes people hold on to suffering and pain. The ego does. It wants to hold on to it. Yeah, that's what we are doing, right? We hold on to the suffering and the pain. And we watch the news. So we feed the same, like you get yourself enough of the stories to keep it there. And the pain and suffering or grief or something. If you want grief out, you have to deal with the grief. I think that usually it's because we say, yeah, but it's because I lost a loved one. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. I have a lot of respect for people grieving. It's because something lovely, something that was kind, left the earth, left your life. You lost something that was of kindness and love and care and compassion, perhaps. Why is that such a loss? It's because that's what we want. As I just said, we want to have this. Like it's when someone is like portraying that, giving it to you, sending something like that to you, it's what we do want to have in here, right? Someone who cares, who shows us that we are worth caring for. So if we lose someone like that, it feels like a great loss. But eventually we are grieving ourselves also. We are grieving that we can no longer have this interaction. That interaction is now lost for you. So we lost a person. Maybe it was a person who was not only kind to you, but were kind to a community, and then maybe many people are grieving, right? because that was a person that shed light. They came in with light. They were prepared to offer light to others, kindness and light to others. And we are suckers for that. We want that, right? We want to be mirrored in that way, especially if we actually feel that we are guilty or shameful or something. If someone sends us kindness, it must be because they like me somehow. There must be something about me that is likable, otherwise they won't do it. So we're grieving our own loss of something. And we are hating the discomfort that it gives us, that we are now without this. We don't feel whole without it. We feel a big hole in our heart. We feel we don't feel enough without them. And the ego loves this. The ego is saying, yeah, how terrible the world is now. How bad everything is. And yeah, we can't really do it, can't we? We can't get along without them. Like, we're feeding the ego wolf, you could say. But what if you could? It doesn't mean that you're supposed to forget them. It doesn't mean that... And you never will, I think. You will never forgive the people that are kind to you. Like, that is not really... So if we really want to be kind to others, if we really want to embrace that, for our own sake, I really feel I've said this before, I believe that everything we do as human has a self-centered core. Otherwise, we're not doing it. No matter how rigid it seems, there is a reason why. Always. So if we sit in grieving, it's because it allows something in us to live. If we are victims of something, it's because it somehow helps us to be a victim. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. Like, it wouldn't make sense to be a victim of something. Feeling like a scapegoat is a victim state. In what way does it help you? I had to ask myself this also. Like, I didn't like the fact, first of all, it's not nice to be a victim. It feels vulnerable. It feels like you can't get out. It feels like you are trapped somehow. But at the same time, I had to ask myself, in what way does victimhood serve me? Well, if I'm a victim, I could be scared, right? And if I'm scared, I may be someone who is more cautious. Maybe I stay at home more. I don't go out as much. I'm cautious. I'm careful. I'm on guard. Maybe that helps me in some way. There are circumstances that I don't get myself involved in because of that behavior. You know, like, I will not do risky things. I will also not take charge. If I'm a victim, I need others to take charge, right? I need others to be those that tell me what's right and wrong. It means that I cannot get blamed, right? Because if I'm the one who says what's right and wrong, I could get blamed by others. I could be attacked for that. But if I'm just following other people's rules, I may feel a bit like a victim because I'm not in charge myself, but at the same time, I can blame them then, can't I? There's always something that serves, always in some way. So I was someone who didn't want to take risks, or I learned that taking risks is dangerous. It gets me in trouble. So I would rather stay the victim and not get in trouble, start having a behavior that kept me safe somehow, kept me alert and safe. That where I was choosing not to engage in certain sides of life because maybe I wasn't safe there. To get my point of that, that's what it is. It always serves something. Those that are victors, it also serves them. It serves them better than being a victim. That's why they're doing it. That's why they uphold their rules. That's why they don't care. That's why they become Prometheus, the rebellion. That's why they are not a yielding acolyte. Does it make sense? Like when I was a child, it served me better to yield than to stand up for myself. I was facing an enemy I couldn't, or a power, an energy. I was facing an energy that was not for me to, I couldn't win. And what I know about my worldviews today, how I see the world and everything, of course I couldn't win because I don't have it's not up to me. Like it's what people do and what they think, it's not up to me. Like I may have my own views of the world, but I'm not really wanting to judge others. Like it's up to them to figure this out. And their choices, well, again, it serves something. And I grew up in an environment that was highly judgmental. An environment where only very certain things within a little like bubble was accepted. And I'm probably not at all like that. I'm definitely to just expand that bubble out. Like, I don't care, really. What other people do is what they do. It's not up for me to judge that. Like, I have no say in that. I personally, maybe it's nothing for me. Like, maybe I don't like it. But it doesn't matter as long as they don't force me to do it. And that's what happened. I was forced to be and do something that I was not. And that's why I was miserable. I was forced to put in something into my container that was not in alignment with me. That's why I was miserable. I was forced to live and see the world in a certain way. And I'm not I'm not designed to be a warrior. So I became a yielding acolyte because there was no other choice. That's how I am. And I think children do this because of what they are. So being careful about what you fill up your container with, perhaps also. Is it, if you feel miserable, it's because there's something in there that is not in alignment with you. Or or you feel something is missing or something, right? That's why we look for this soulmate that is supposed to fill us up, which they cannot, but that's what we're looking for, because somehow we feel like something is missing. Or that you know that something is in there that is preventing me to feel more fulfilled. If I could just take this out, the misery of being alone, the sadness, the suffering, the pain of being rejected, if I could take it out and fill in something else, wouldn't that be nice, right? But you can do that. But if you're holding on to the sadness and the rejection and something, you may ask yourself, why? Why do I keep that story alive? Why do I keep it alive? It's fed somehow. Something is fed by you staying where you are and feeling miserable. It's feeding into something. You just have to figure out what it is. Some people say they're looking for this soulmate. This is all they want. And they keep meeting people that won't commit to them. That's such an interesting thing, because if you do that repeatedly, you have to ask yourself if you really want a commitment. Like, because you keep attracting people that won't commit to you. Why? Because commitment is somehow threatening something. You say you want it, but you have to look a little bit deeper. Why does, like every time they reject you, it gives a feedback to you. There's a mental feedback to you that reinforces this idea that I'm not attractive, perhaps. Or I'm not someone that people commit to. I'm not someone that people commit to. Why are you not such a person? Because they seem like they always run away. Okay, why are you not such a person? What is so bad about you then? And you may say, I don't know, but it's in there. Trust me, it's in there. Anyway, it was just a check-in, and I had this download. I just wanted to tell you, right, that if you want your container to hold something else, you have to clean it up. And it means inside you. But as I said with the meditation, right, then every time these thoughts come, you look at them, you figure out what it is, and you let them pass, right? The same thing you can do with people, with jobs, with love situations, with everything. Figure out what is it that it gives you. What is it? What is the message behind it? And when they leave, if they leave, or if you let them leave, if you say goodbye to them, it must be because it's not kind enough, or it's not exciting enough, or I don't know what you're looking for, right? But it must be because it doesn't align with something. The more you clean up, the more the other voice starts ruling, and the ego voice starts shrinking. But it may take a while in the beginning, right? It's just to say that shadow work is not... It's just a word, and people use it, and it seems like, yeah, but you just need to do shadow work then. You just need to let go. Yeah, yeah, you just need to let go. That is maybe not Like if you have a PTSD suffering, this is very difficult. Because PTSD is like a stress response to an event that was highly life-threatening. This is where the ego was at its highest alert. And it was fed in that way. So breaking that down is like breaking a giant wolf down, right? Some have very small wolves and some have giant wolves, right? You figure out what you have. If you are on a journey, if you feel miserable, if you're looking or a seeker towards something, it's probably because there's a wolf that dominates and the other is not fed. Yeah. And you figure out what you want to be. Like, what is your container supposed to have? What is your container supposed to contain? Like, what is the right feeling in here? The authentic one. I think we have an authentic one. And if we are out of alignment of the authentic one, we feel unhappy. You know, there could be things in there that are okay. Like maybe you have done okay in job. Maybe you have done okay with maybe certain friends, right? But in the love life, it doesn't work, or you just feel like there's another side that never feels like it's because there's something in here that is out of alignment. Yeah. So what's in your vessel? Usually people look outside of themselves, right? That looking at themselves and actually looking inside what's in there, like opening this cupboard up and looking at the skeletons in there. And even misery in there. Many people run from that. They keep looking outside of themselves, right? And they may die like that. That's it for them. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's a part of a maturing process of that soul. If that's how they live their life, that's how they live their life. I believe a maturing process only happens if it becomes bad enough. Like if it becomes bad enough for the individual, they start looking. And again, you know, you can have this friend and you know they are really off track, like they live a really unhealthy life in your eyes. And you want them to feel better. And you can say it to them. You can even provide them, you know, like with help them out. You can take them to the pharmacy. You can take them to doctors. You can do everything. But if the egg is not right to hatch, if the tomato is green, it's not moving. It's not ready. It hasn't become bad enough. You just become an enabler. You see? That's what I personally feel. It doesn't mean that I can't help another person. It's just having the loving awareness that, okay, I'm standing in front of a person and I'm taking them to the pharmacy to get prescription drugs or to get medicine. Great. I'm doing that because this is what they want. But I'm also having a loving awareness that they haven't chosen to awaken. They haven't chosen to heal. They haven't chosen to, or they're not ready to heal. They're not ready to take that path. They're not ready to look at themselves. They're not ready to go through a transformation. They don't want to. So in that loving awareness, I stay then. I understand that. I see that, okay, this is what they are choosing. That's their decision at this point. I still can help them, but I'm helping them. I'm actually enabling the state they're in. That's what I'm doing. So you can also decide, do I want to do that? Do I want to do that? Maybe there are other people around them that will be enabling, but you can decide, do I want to do that? If this is a person you know about, it can, maybe you see someone in the street that needs help. You don't know that person, right? But you can still help them get over across the street or something, right? You can help them carry something. Having a loving awareness, okay, they have packed a lot. They can't actually get all this stuff with them. They can't carry it alone, right? But I have loving awareness. This is what they chose. It's their decision. And it's probably serving them in some way. Maybe not me, but it's probably serving them in some way. Otherwise, they haven't packed all this stuff. Maybe they really need to feel like sure about stuff. Like they want a lot of clothes with them. They want a lot of stuff with them on this travel. But they can't actually carry it themselves. That's way too much. But, well, anyway, this is what I have. Be aware of your vessel, right? What you take in. If you actually do want it. And if you have something in there and you do feel miserable, it's probably because it's not in alignment with the authentic you. Like the real you. The one behind the layers. Yeah. This is what I have. I hope this helps somehow. And if you are like me, someone who hollows out, somehow literally like hollowing yourself out for others to take in the space sometimes, I had no awareness about this. Well, I think I just did it. I think it's innately in me. And I think I came here because of that. Because I can hold energy. I can be a vessel of energy. We all are a vessel of energy, but I can become a vessel where I decide what's in there. And because of that, I can hold a certain frequency. I just have to choose which one. Okay? And you can do the same. But it takes a surrender. It takes the ego to let its guard down, and that is not necessarily easy. But that's the let go and let God. It's actually just release your fighting tendencies, release your walls, like break down the walls. When you break down the walls, you become more open, and you would say maybe vulnerable. But this is where the surrender is. What are you feeding? Do you feed the walls? Or do you feed something else? If you feed the walls are in here. The need for them to be in here is still here. If you decide to break them down and shed some of them, or as I said, release victimhood. I've had that in some of the readings here. That if you can release victimhood, it means that you can reclaim power. But you cannot be a victim and be a victor at the same time. You cannot be in charge and being a victim that runs from responsibility at the same time. So you have to decide. That is probably one of the reasons. Decide what your vessel holds. or what you want it to hold. If you feel miserable, if you feel unhappy with your life, it's because it's not authentic. That's why you're not happy. I don't know what authentic is for you. I just know what more and more what it is for me. There's no such thing as only one authentic way of being. Like, I don't think so, especially with yin and yang. Like, there must be differences. I may be someone who holds peace, for instance, like peace or well, when I get there, like a release of prejudice, right? But I know that there will be others who hold different energy, and that's quite all right. As long as I'm not taking my personal stuff and like put it into your head. Like you should be like me, for instance, right? No, you should not be like me. You should be what's authentic to you, what's right for you. Not like me, you know? My journey is my journey. Maybe it's similar. Maybe you have similar things going on. And maybe we will look similar in a certain way. But it could also be it's not like that. Go for what feels authentic. Like when you feel like you lighten up instead of you feel drained. That is a guideline. Perhaps, right? Does it light you up or does it drain you? And be aware of the ego voice, right? Yeah, this is what I have. As always, I send you my very best. Take care of yourself. Love and light. Bye-bye.